Hey everybody, and welcome to Meals with Melissa, where we come up with healthier versions of things you love to eat. Now, this is the greatest recipe ever because let me tell you, it is probably one of the healthier options that I have when it comes to chocolate. So, we are going to make chocolate chickpea muffins. Now, I am telling you from experience, they are fabulous, and I'm going to show you how to make them my way. So, first thing we're going to do is we are going to grab a food processor. Now this is the only one that I have. I used to have a larger one, but this is all I've got, and it's 3.5 cups. So we're actually going to make a half batch today. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start out with half a can of chickpeas. Like I said, this is going to be half of a recipe, but I will leave the full recipe down below. So this is, I know it's a Christmas coffee mug there, but this is, so half a can, a 15-ounce can of chickpeas that have been washed and drained and dried. So we're going to put that in. The cool thing is all you have to do is mix these all together, pour them in the container or in the little cupcake molds, and that's it, and you bake it. That's it. Now, I will show you that I'm using cupcake papers. I like them because they're a lot easier. It's way better cleanup. Otherwise, you're gonna have to spray it and clean it, and it's just kind of a pain, but that is the easiest way to do these. Okay, so to that, we are going to add, and make sure I get this right. The original recipe calls for 3 large eggs, so we are going to, crazy stuff going on in the background. We are going to just half that. So I actually mixed up 3 eggs. I made half a batch because I want to show you what they look like. So this is the other half of the 3 eggs. I'm going to pour that in there. I tried making a full batch out of this, and what happens is that it kind of overflows my poor little food processor. So we're just going to avoid that by making a half batch. Plus, you know, if you don't want to eat, I don't know about you, but I tend to start into them. I might eat them all. It makes it a whole lot easier to make a smaller batch of it. All right, so to that, we are going to add 1/4 cup of honey. So I've got my 1/4 cup here. Now let me grab I thought I had a rubber scraper, but let me grab one real quick. Oh, here we go. And make sure that I have that on hand because this is invaluable when it comes to honey. It's very, very sticky, obviously. All right, so I am going to measure out a 1/4 cup. Easier to set this down and do it. All right, and I know I'm using a dry measure, 1/4 cup, but honestly, it works just fine. And my measuring cups for liquids are a little too big for this. So super easy, squeezing it in there. Right there. Now this is the sweet. Now the original recipe actually calls for a banana to add to the sweetness. You don't need it. You don't need it for baking. You don't need it for sweetness. I promise. You just don't need it. And I'll show you how I get a little bit extra sweet without going over the top. Now I'm gonna scrape this out. All right. So to that, I'm going to add, now the original calls for 1/3 cup. You wanna know what half of a 1/3 cup is? It's a little crazy. It's actually 2 tablespoons plus 2 teaspoons. So we're gonna use some awesome cocoa powder. And of course, I like to use high end because I don't use it very often. And when I do use it, I want my whatever recipe to be amazing. So I'm going to do, I have the Ghirardelli's, right? Cocoa powder, and this is 100% cocoa Dutch process. Okay, and again, there's no sweet to actual cocoa powder, so the sweet comes from the honey in this one, and of course the chickpeas are the flour. Crazy, right? It's very, very interesting, but it works and it tastes amazing. I would say I've made several batches. Okay, so there's 2 tablespoons, and I have a teaspoon over here. We do 2 teaspoons added to that. The great thing is all you have to do is add all these to your food processor, mix it up, and you can use a blender if you don't have a food processor. I just don't have a big enough one to work for this. I have like my little mini Ninja, and that doesn't really work for what I'm trying to accomplish here. All right, to that, I am going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Now this is your leavening agent, but be aware that your muffins, cupcakes, whatever you want to call them, are not going to rise like regular muffins or cupcakes. So just keep that in mind because I don't want you to be surprised and go, why are they sinking a little bit in the middle? It's the ingredients, can't help with that. All right, I'm gonna add a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. There we go. All right, to that, I'm gonna add 1.5 tablespoons of coconut oil. Now, of course, I have that in my house all the time. I use a ton of it. I'm gonna heat this really quick because you do want it melted. So let me throw that in the microwave just for 2 seconds here. And that way, because that way it pours just a little bit easier and it'll mix a little bit easier. Coconut oil, room temperature, is actually a solid. So you wanna make sure that it actually mixes very, very well. So that's what we're gonna do right now. On top of that, we're gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. I got just a little bit of that left here, but let me grab the coconut oil. And for those of you that don't like the flavor of coconut, you can taste the coconut. So just be aware of that if you're not a big fan of coconut. You're just gonna have to deal with it. All right, so let's see, I'm just gonna use a half tablespoon measure. So I'm just gonna fill it 3 times, make it easy. Use all kinds of measuring spoons. That's just kind of how it goes. I kind of make a mess, but I'm pretty good at cleaning up after myself. So no worries, but these are phenomenal. Now, once you do bake them, if you want to keep them fresh, you don't have to refrigerate them, but you do want to keep them in some sort of a Ziploc bag or a airtight container, because otherwise they will kind of get a little yucky throughout a couple of days. All right, so the half a teaspoon of vanilla that I just had in my hand, half a teaspoon. See, this is it. We're almost done. And then we're gonna make them and it's gonna be fabulous. And the oven's already preheated to 350. So it is actually ready to go already. There we go. And to that, we're gonna add 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, right? And like I said, you don't really taste the cinnamon. It just adds just a little extra flair to it. Now, the last thing that you probably see down below if you're watching this after the fact is chocolate pieces. Now, again, we're gonna do that, but in just a second. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to pulse this. I wanna have it pureed. Now, it's gonna be very, very thin, so keep that in mind that that is normal. And it's gonna take me a second. I wanna make sure that it gets really well mixed. So it's gonna be loud. Okay. Unless it's not staying. All right, you know, there we go. This plug-in does not hold very well. So there we go, mixing it up. Yay. So this poor little KitchenAid food processor has been with me for quite a while. It has been worth every penny I paid for it. But I'm gonna just mix this. The cocoa powder likes to kind of make a mess. And I do wanna make sure that it is fully incorporated in that. Now, don't taste it, because remember it has raw egg in it, although I tend to like even cookie dough. Yes, I'm one of those. All right, so mix that. I'm gonna get the sides here. I wanna mix it, because I'm just gonna pour it into the cupcake mix, the little papers, and then throw it in the oven, and it takes all of about 20 minutes, and then cool it off. They're actually even better once they've cooled off, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, let me mix that one more time, then we're gonna dump that into, I'm gonna pour it into the little cupcake liners. Perfect. All right, there we go. Like I said, it's gonna be very, very thin, it's okay. My doggos are barking at something right now. I don't know what they're barking at. We tend to do that a lot. I'll open the front door, nobody's there. All right, so I'm gonna pour this into my liners. And I'm gonna throw it in the oven for about, it says 18 to 20 minutes. Honestly, 20 minutes, you're probably safe. I do check that with a toothpick just to make sure that it is cooked all the way through. And then I let it set for a while. And I'll show you what these will look like in just a second. You wanna fill these about 2/3 to 3/4. So a half batch should make about 6. A full batch is gonna make a dozen. And you don't wanna overfill them because they'll just do the whole bake over the top thing and it's it just kind of makes a mess. And they don't quite look as pretty. Not that I'm going for pretty, I'm just going for really good chocolate muffins on this one. All right, so I'm gonna fill these up. Now, the last thing that I do, and it's totally up to you, I have actually used cut up pieces of Lindt squares. You can use sugar-free chocolate chips. Let me tell you what sugar-free chocolate chips do to my gut. My microbiome doesn't quite care for it, and I can't do a lot of that. So I tend to like to just use very, very little of the probably least processed dark chocolate I can find. So the Lindt works pretty well if you can get a hold of something that has even less than that. The problem is a lot of processed food today has a lot of chemicals in it. So that's what we're trying to avoid. We want to have probably, the most natural product that we possibly can. So before I throw this in the oven, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to add, now this is what I'm gonna add today. These are 53% the Nestle dark chocolate chips. Okay? And they're fairly large, so you only need 3 or 4 of them. Yes, I'm aware they have sugar, but just keep that in mind that, again, I almost prefer these over sugar-free stuff because A, I'm not using a lot of them, and B, they just have a better flavor. So I'm gonna put like 4 in each cupcake on the top, and then I'm gonna throw it in the oven, like I said, for about 18. For me, it's 20 minutes, almost exactly, and it works out just fine. So I'm gonna throw these on, just right on the top, and they'll melt, and then they'll solidify again. They're fantastic. And it just gives you a little extra crunch when they're all cooled. We're gonna throw that in the oven, and then let me show you really quick what they're gonna look like. I'll stop there. I'll throw it in once we're done. Okay, so how they'll look. So like I said, they're not going to raise like a normal muffin or cupcake. They do sink a little bit in the middle, so keep that in mind. It does not affect their flavor. It does not affect their texture. They still taste phenomenal. I love them. Like I said, put them in a little Ziploc bag, and they'll last for, you know, a good week. And you can have them when you just have that craving, or if you kind of have the munchies, that works too. Yeah, they work great for that. Anyway, I get my very best ideas from you, and so this was something that someone else had made, and it was phenomenal. Tried it and loved it, and so I brought it to you. So if you have a great recipe you'd like to share, please leave a comment down below, or you can message me directly. And if you're not on YouTube, you should go to YouTube, find my channel under Fillmore Fitness. Make sure you like and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get all the new stuff that comes out, because I have a lot of new stuff coming out for the summer. I'm pretty excited about that. Fresh, fresh, fresh. Have a great week, everybody. And that's all she wrote. We'll talk to you soon. Stay happy and healthy, my friends.